Precious. Hi, Mama B.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I was just introducing the program and introducing myself. So I was saying I'm Faik Bouhrik, the founder of the Vegan Stay. And today in our series, Tales from Vegan Sanctuaries from Around the World, our guest is Mama B, who is the founder of the Owl and PussyCat Animal Sanctuary in South New Wales in Australia. And you and I had a chat before, and we talked in person, and in fact we have actually quite a few people joining us already, and we usually have people tuning in. And I'm very, very excited to be sharing your story and your journey with our audience. So how are you doing today, Mama P?
I'm well. Having us on your show.
How
on your
lovely. So usually a starting point, actually this is the band of Animal Place, which is the sanctuary that I volunteer at more regularly. It's about an hour away from where I live, and it's actually the sanctuary that working at inspired all of this. So Mama B, the first question is, becoming aware of animals as sentient beings and wanting to do something about it and becoming vegan, it all sort of comes at different stages. So could you please walk us through your journey? When did you become vegan and why? And since you became vegan, how did you decide to start a sanctuary?
Well, my story is a little bit different to some people's. It starts off very simply. So I was just an animal lover when I was a kid, right from the beginning. And I always had a really special place in my heart for farmed animals, and it never felt right eating meat and 3 veg, which is the way I was brought up, very conventional white Australian family. And I really didn't like it, but I was forced to eat. It was the 70s, that's what they did, or some people did. And so by the time I was about 13 or 14, I was cooking most nights for the family so that we didn't have to eat meat. So that's my love of cooking, love of not using animal products in food started when I was really young. So then I continued on. As soon as I left home, like they wouldn't let me be a vegetarian, but as soon as I left home, I became vegetarian like 30 odd years ago or whatever that was. And but then I was a really slow learner. So I thought I was doing the best thing I could for the animals by being a vegetarian in the 80s and 90s and, you know, just having this life. And I'd heard of vegans, and then the vegans I had heard of, like, you know, we've got such a bad name, don't mention the V word and all of that sort of stuff, which is where I think sanctuaries can do so much good. So I was brought up as in a very strict religious family. So to me, the whole vegan movement sort of felt a bit like that. So I just ran a mile, thought I was doing a great job. And we actually bought this 130 acres, and it's nearly 6 years ago now, with the view of rescuing farmed animals. But I wasn't going to do it straight away because I have human kids as well. But then all of the animals found me. And so very early on, the first residents were bobby calves, and I'd never even heard of the term bobby calf. And as soon as I found out what it was, I was like, oh my God, we've got to be vegans. So very slow learner, but the sanctuary and becoming vegan all happened, you know, like in the space of a week.
Yeah, wow. And you know, in fact, actually, I wouldn't call it being a slow learner. You're very humble. It's just how we are human beings. We are very complex. We are able of having contradictions and living with them. We are able to tell ourselves myths, either collective or individual, and believe in them. Like, for example, I came to the United States. I was introduced to the concept of vegetarian. I became vegetarian on my freshman year of college, since that was the first time I ever heard of it. And then for the next 15, 16 years, I thought I was doing the right thing by the animals. And in fact, you know what I used to call vegans? I used to call them fundamentalist vegetarians. It's like the fanatics of vegetarianism. Vegetarianism is the normal state of things, and being vegan is kind of like, give me a break. And I can believe now that I'm one of them, and not just that, I'm an animal rights activist. So I think your story is quite universal. And I think the other side, of it, and this is something I have seen when I talk with founders of vegan sanctuaries, is that you understand the depth and the need. So not only the depth of compassion you have to have for animals, the depth of compassion you have to have for people who are not vegan.
Yeah.
It's just like us.
Yeah.
It's just they are at a different stage of the journey. The vast majority of people, they don't want to hurt animals. They don't realize that they do it. And that's a very different thing than dealing with somebody who's doing it intentionally. So I think yours is very common, very universal story of it comes in stages. Well, particularly the culture around us, it's not all about this. So
yeah, and like we condition from birth, you know, like the white Australian culture is a very, very meat eating, out of our farm culture, you know, and if you're not, there's like an Australian, you're un-Australian. But it's just so insidious, you know, just even little kids' books. When I was reading children's books to my kids, they were little, and they'd go, can we read this book about the farm? And then I'd have a look at it and go, but hang on, like, this is conditioning you from really young. The farmer's dog got treated well, but then the cow wasn't being cared for. So, and that's one of the reasons why we write the animals write our owl and PussyCat, which are letters that get sent around the world once a month from the sanctuary. It's a gentle way. They're written for everyone, particularly for children. And so the animals tell their stories. They tell their rescue stories. They tell stories of a day in the life of the sanctuary, and it's all written in the first person. And it demonstrates that all of these beings are sentient beings. They all want the same thing: love, kindness, compassion. I think that that's what we need to do, is get in when they're young and try and break down this conditioning that we've all been subjected to, and the marketing machines. And I'll get off my soapbox soon, but you know, like, there's so much to fight against, but there's so much that we can do in a compassionate and gentle way. And the animals are their best advocates, like their own best advocates. People who come and stay in the house or come on tours, you know, it's just like lighting that little light bulb. What is a bobby calf? What do you mean the boys get killed? You know, people don't know. The dairy industry is so clever.
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have the resources to run these vast marketing, not just vast and subtle. And here in the United States, for example, they are subsidized by the government. Yeah. I mean, they have a lot of clout, a lot of power. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. So I'm very curious, where does the name come from? The name of the sanctuary, right. The owl and the...
I know, because look, rescue owls, rescue pussycats. No, not really. We do have owls and we do have pussycats, but that's not our focus. So I don't know whether you know, it's a very, very famous poem, an English poem by Edward Lear called The Owl and the Pussycat. And it's a beautiful tale about an owl falling in love with a pussycat, and they run away to sea on their pea green boat. And, you know, all of the animals that are in there demonstrate that they're just like humans, you know, that they fall in love and they get married by a pig. And, you know, and to me, and this land is such a magical piece of land. It feels like a sort of fairy tale land, and that's what we want it to feel like for the animals who live here, you know, this magical fairy tale. So that poem just sort of embodied what we're trying to teach people in a gentle, subtle, you know, magical way. That's where it came from.
That's beautiful. That's very beautiful. And I did see, and we will be seeing the land around the sanctuary. It really is very, very beautiful. It looks, I mean, last time when I saw it, I was like, is this photoshopped or is this real? It's very beautiful. It was very green. It was intense green, and it was beautiful.
Yeah. It's not as intense green now because we're into spring, and where we are on the mid-north coast of Australia, we're sort of subtropical. So we are in winter. Very dry. Yeah, it's not as it was.
So please tell me a little bit more about, so how many animals live at the property now, what species, and also how do you go about doing the work for them? Do you have a volunteering program? Do you have a membership program? And how can people listening to us live or listening to this recording contribute to the mission of the sanctuary?
So at the moment we've got 70 rescuers rescue residents in care. We have cows, ducks, goats, sheep and horses. We've got a couple of Mustangs, awful situation over there with the Mustangs that get rounded up. Well, we have the same here in Australia. Mount Kosciuszko and Stone Mountain Brumbies. So we've got 2 Brumbies that arrived here, totally wild, and they're big snuggle bunnies now. We don't do any formal training. It's just love, time and patience. When we were talking a minute ago, that's who was standing outside the window, one of the Brumbies. And what was your next question? How did they come to be here, or who can help?
Yes, so usually volunteers are the backbone of sanctuaries.
Yeah.
Well, at least sanctuaries that at least reach a certain size. And many sanctuaries are actually out of one person's show. Usually it's a woman.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't say one man show. It's actually really is a one woman show. Usually that's what it is. Even if there is, I always tell sanctuary founders when I meet them for the first time, if it's a couple, yeah, it's usually the woman that's talking to me, because clearly she's the one in charge. Yeah. And then I guess I said, okay, let me guess, your husband is a handyman.
Yeah.
She would say, oh, how do you know?
Yeah, so funny. So look, it was my vision, definitely my vision, my sort of sole purpose, but Sanctuary Papa Finn is totally on board. He just loves riding tractors and fences. So he does so much. It's really just been the 2 of us mainly this year. There's a small committee of us that run the sanctuary. We've got a gorgeous couple, Pixie and Benji. We run the Owl and the PussyCat, and we're a registered charity. They were living on site for a couple of years, but then had to leave because of a career thing for her. So we've missed them desperately over the last 10 months. It's been really, really hard. But excitingly, we're just about to welcome a vegan vet nurse to come and care for the animals. So that is a massive coup. We have people who pop up occasionally to volunteer. I'm always very jealous of these sanctuaries that seem to have these armies of volunteers, but it's been really tough for us because we run a whole other business as well to support the sanctuary, and we've got the human kids. So in the early days, people would say they wanted to volunteer. We'd spend time with them showing the ropes, and then, they wouldn't turn back up, or they'd say they were coming and they weren't coming, or and people just want to add a horse. So what we actually really need is a volunteer human resources manager, someone who can field all of these requests that we have and then organise people. And that's not my skill set, I have tons of skills, but human resources management is not one of them. So we're kind of calling that in at the moment. And so it would be great to get regular volunteers. And we don't need people to spend heaps of time or come all the time. But even if people can just commit to, 3 hours once a month, but actually turn up, that would be fabulous. And you don't need any skills, although because we got really smashed in the huge floods we had here last year. So we had about $150,000 worth of damage, and we're still rebuilding since the floods. So people who can wield a drill, which I'm not that person, are gratefully received, because we desperately need to get still some of the infrastructure back up from the floods. Yeah.
Okay, that is great to hear. And for our listeners, again, this is Mama B, the founder of the Owl and PussyCat Animal Sanctuary in South New Wales in Australia. So, Mama B, tell me, what's the nearest city to you?
Okay, the biggest town closest to us is about 20 minutes down the highway, Byron Bay in Australia. Anyone who's travelled anywhere has pretty much heard of Byron Bay. It's a very, very popular surf location, and it's really gorgeous because we're right on the coast, so we're sort of coastal. But then the closest major capital city in Australia that we're close to is actually Brisbane, over the border in Queensland. Oh, okay. How far away is Brisbane from you? Brisbane's about, I never go there. I think it's about 2 hours north. Oh, that's yeah. I mean, in a country like Australia, the size of Australia, 2 hours is nothing. I mean, it's like your next door neighbor. Yeah, pretty much. I tell you what, it was tough during lockdown because they closed the border, and we're only 35 minutes south of the border, and our Apple computer broke, and the closest place to get it fixed was 10 hours south in Sydney. It was ridiculous.
Oh, so they closed the borders between provinces?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
they did. Okay.
Down, so.
Wow, wow. Yeah, wow. The United States, I mean, the borders between states, I mean, they really are not, they don't have any sense of sort of a strong identity in the sense that they are sort of solid borders. So that there nothing like that happened here during COVID. Oh, wow. Going back to volunteering, are there opportunities for people to be able to volunteer remotely? Because you just said something that some of the things that you talked about, there could be things that could be done remotely. I personally would love to contribute, even if a couple of hours, a month or something. I would love to contribute.
Thank you. Well, actually, probably the thing that we really need to get off the ground and get out there are the our category. Which I just happen to have one I prepared out. So this is the tale that Mia wrote. So they're beautifully illustrated, they're gorgeous tales, and they come with a free postcard. And everyone says it's $110 a month. So basically, people subscribe, so get what they want. And that $10.90 goes directly to the postage charges. Because my writer and illustrator, so I don't pay it to do. I just do that. So if people can share our, so particularly share our posts that we do out there, so we can get subscriber numbers up. Because if we hit 500 subscribers a month, we'd be able to pay the sanctuary. And at the moment.
Mama B, it's cut in. Is that somewhere else in the house where probably the connection will be a little bit better? It was very good initially, but then it started to cut. Okay, it's better now. It's better now.
Yeah.
It's better.
So yeah, even if people just share our stories and our posts on media, particularly about tale, or buy them as a gift for a friend, or because if we can get subscribers up to 5, we would completely pay for everything, and it would, and the work's done. So, and at the moment we've only got 40 subscribers. So, yeah,
absolutely. I would love to get one myself. Yeah. And in fact, as we were talking, so let's talk about it after this. And I would love to ask our social media person to create a post about this, and so they can share it on our social media platforms, but also, accounts, but also I will ask them to share it to Facebook groups and try to share it widely on Instagram to help you with this. This could be probably a great contribution. That another thing, as we were talking, I'm just realizing, because we could create, because we have the resources, they will be able to create these, focus on one particular sanctuary, and then say, okay, what can we do the most for you right now? It widely. We absolutely can do that. Let's talk about this afterwards.
Okay, thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to have one. I would get one myself. So we talked about volunteers. We talked about the need for commitment. And for people listening to us, for me, why do I do what I do? Why did I start the Vegan Stay in the first place? People like Mama B are a very, very special brand of human. They are a special breed of a human. Very highly empathetic, incredibly courageous, almost always female. The truth had to be told. Almost always, there are exceptions, but almost always female. They carry on so much. They show up day in and day out. So yes, there is a lot of joy in being with animals and taking pictures, but sanctuaries are extremely hard work. You are taking these children. Animals, they become your children, and that's what Mama B. That's exactly what the name is for. She's a mama for human babies and or human children as well as non-human children.
Yeah.
The non-human children, and then particularly so because a pig. In the meat industry, there is only one plan. Kill the pig when the pig is 6 months old, or discard the pig if the pig useless before that time. There is no plan there is no plan beyond 6 months. There isn't. But the potential life of a pig or a cow, it's decades. I mean, up to 20 years or so. That is a very long commitment. And people need to understand that people like you, Mama B, are doing all of us an immense favor. And you are wearing multiple hats during the day. So having volunteers who would show up even a couple of hours a month could make all the difference, And by going to a sanctuary, of course, there are sanctuary visits and spending time with animals, which is very, very lovely. I do that myself all the time. But my weekly shift at Animal Place, when I go, it's about cleaning barns. That's what they need. They need people to show up and help with cleaning barns. Because chicken barns, for example, they get cleaned daily. Chicken barns get cleaned daily. The big enclosures are much easier. Well, because with pigs is a little bit different. Is they do their bathroom far away from where they sleep, and it's different. So I'm just trying to every time I have one of these lives is just one of the very important thing I want to give people a sense of what kind of service people like you are doing for all of us. And well, what I created this project and I partnered with sanctuaries, hoping to provide them with resources. And we just started with only 10 months and we're building. Is that eventually you spend more of your precious time saving lives and educating, because you get all these hats, and then there is the older nightmare of keeping the electric bills paid and keeping the animals fed and keeping the animals cared for. And a lot of the animals that come, they are rescues, they are traumatized, they are ill, they come from neglect. So they are very, they deserve and they need resources and attention. And people like you should not be taken for granted. We absolutely we owe it to you, and we owe it to ourselves and to the animals to support you in what you do. So I just want to make it very clear.
Hard to describe what a rescue organisation like. Last searching for hay because the floods washed out to sea. No hay for my region. They've fire ants, so they're going to close the border to hay. And like find the hay, I found any hay out. So that's 2 days of my life. So many and of running, just charity. It's just more than anyone can imagine. Not amazing work, but it's breaking work. And it's incredible. It's not what not on ours anyway. I should probably.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just about the reality of the matter. It is, and it's extremely important, for people to really understand what type of commitment this is. What type of a person takes this kind of responsibility against overwhelming and sometimes impossible odds, and they say, no. Say that again, please.
I said a crazy person.
Yeah, well, it's the type of crazy that we need. So that is the type of crazy that we need to be a little bit more crazy in that way. Yeah, absolutely. No, somebody who does not fit into the box, somebody who is not cat that way, somebody whose empathy is so elevated, their emotional intelligence is so elevated, their commitment is so elevated that you cannot constrain them. That's wild. I would say wild and crazy in the most positive way. Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I say it's a unique breed of human.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like being a real risk taker, but because you're taking risks that's really fine with what you know to be deeply right, there's not much fear. Like, I'm not really that think all day, and because I've come from a background of marketing and PR, branding, fundraising, even though we haven't had time to grow our I just know that we'll be all right. You know, we're very good when we like really, really passionate about responsible rescue. That's planned, and that we had a really torn through our entire personal safety at it. So we were able to weather. Wouldn't have anyone stay here, and weather the storm, weather the actual floods. So yeah, we'll be all right. You know, like yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not surprised at all. So another thing that comes to my mind is a question I always like to ask, and I see a theme emerging. So I ask sanctuary founders like you, is running a sanctuary, what is the hardest thing that you have to do? And what is the most inspiring things that you have learned from animals? What's the most inspiring things that you have learned, and what is the hardest thing that you have to face?
Well, I think possibly different for everyone. For me personally, having to deal with humans, so all sorts of different humans, you know, and supposed to repair the things that they don't. You know, people who say they're going to. The human part for me, I find and the heartbreak, like and a highly sensitive person, and just knowing where things are from and hearing day after day, hard mentally, it takes a big toll on health. They're probably and then the most amazing thing of animals. Next question.
Yeah, what's the most inspiring thing, the most amazing thing that you have learned from animals, on being around them?
Taught me to trust. You know, like animals are incredible, and I've actually just my equine assisted training, and be working with the horse, working with the beings, and it's going to be anywhere else. It's an invitation to connect and invitation to one another, and that unfolds is incredible. But animals have this knowledge and being that we don't. We may have lost, and they reteach it. That's what I learned. You know, like especially horses, we have horses really end up rescue them and get them gelded really vet turn just the wrong vet, and I felt like I didn't speak up, and one really bad, and I felt so guilty about it. And a few, and I knew all along those things weren't right, and and trust my instincts. And so now we will always get advice from vets and people who not potentially aren't, but I'll also come back. I know these beings really well, and they will tell you what they. So yeah, trusting my instincts, these other senses, and that's the most incredible.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think there is something that you said also, which is extremely important. And something I would like to emphasize to our listeners. And again, this is Faik Bouhrik, the founder of the Vegan Stay, and I'm talking to Mama B, the founder of the Owl and PussyCat Animal Sanctuary in South New Wales, Australia. So you were talking about the emotional tool. So it's not only that we are asking you, or somebody running a sanctuary like you does all this rescue, lifetime commitment, day-to-day commitments in terms of the micro commitments to every single animal. Every single animal has their own diet, their own medication routines, all of that. You have to keep the lights on, and in summer, when particularly now with summers are very extreme, to make sure the animals have enough water, to make sure that the barns are cool, and try to educate. And you also have to bear witness to some of the darkest aspects of humanity. And I think what human beings do to animals, what we collectively do to animals, it really shows something shows human beings' capacity for depravity. And for somebody, like I said, that kind of very special breed of a person like Mama B and other founders of vegan sanctuaries, people who are extremely sensitive, very, very empathetic, and they have to see that day in and day out. And not just that, sometimes they are faced with the extremely hard choice where an animal that is very deserving of rescue comes to them, but because they lack the resources, they have to say no. But they don't say no because they want to say no, they say no because they don't have a choice. And the kind of damage that does, the kind of emotional toll. So the emotional toll that it takes on them. So I just really want to say that seeing it up close, what it is involved in running a sanctuary, I really hope that our listeners, at the very least, please follow the Owl and PussyCats online. I mean, on Instagram, on Facebook. The handle on Instagram is Owl and PussyCat. Is it Owl and PussyCat Sanctuary or Animal Sanctuary on Instagram? I don't see it.
Owl and PussyCat Farm Sanctuary, I think it is.
And also you could, if they just search it, it will show up, and then you could see it. In fact, if they just click on it, they can see. Please give the sanctuary a follow, and please, I highly encourage everybody listening to us live, and there are quite a few people. I'm very happy with that, and also people listening to this recording later, just to take the time and send even a message to Mama B and other people running sanctuaries and say thank you. I see you. You could, of course, volunteer. You could make donations, and making donations on your website is a possibility, right?
Go through the link.
Wonderful. And your website is very easy to find. Just put the Owl and PussyCat Animal Sanctuary and it will show up. I will make a donation myself after this program, and I encourage everybody to do the same. Please do the same, even very small donations. And it's not just the financial impact, is the emotional impact on people who take this kind of journey, that not to feel alone, because it can be very isolated. It can be very alienating. And it also inspiring, seeing animals come back from very dark places and then find safety, find friendship. I mean, animals with each other, they form friendships, and you feel that you were part of giving them. It must feel very empowering, I could imagine.
Oh, it's incredible. One person this old lady, she's really old now. I think she's about 24. She's a cow, and she was for years left abandoned in the field, just for years by herself, and all herd or flock animals. And she eventually away here, and when she first got off the truck, I was really worried about it, because the whole herd had horns, but she doesn't have horns. And I knew she was elderly as well, and I just thought, oh my God, I hope they welcome her to the herd. And she was that new strategy. They just respected her as a beautiful life now, and she's really come alive. When she arrived, I thought we don't have long with her, but she's really got a spring in her step. And I just, I can't believe the change in her demeanour, the way she talks, So yes, it's so hard to think so many have come from, but wonderful seeing like that.
I can only imagine. And in fact, our post this week was about friendship. between cows. And cows do have best friends. They are just like us. They are very social animals. They have, they have personalities, they have quirks, they have personal choices. They have emotional lives that got nothing to do with their usefulness for humans.
Exactly.
These are beings that were there and they're evolved on this earth in parallel with us. They did not evolve for us. They did not evolve as tools. We turned them into tools, but they aren't.
No.
They have their own lives, their own souls, their own dreams, their own everything, their emotional lives, completely separate from the usage that we create for them. And because we see them as beef, we see them as this, as that, but it doesn't mean that's what they are.
And
it doesn't mean that.
The language is so as well.
Yeah.
They don't tell the truth about what they're doing. The reason why they don't have children to slaughterhouses on school excursions because unspeakable, horrific things happen in there that most people can't do. You wouldn't do to your family. They don't use the words that is what's happening to them. So, they talk about beef. Well, it's not beef, it's not a living being, not the slaughterhouse, it's a murder house. Just use the actual language and maybe people would think twice about it too.
Yeah.
And to give an example of how beautiful they are, we were lucky enough to have a rescue of 5 together. And there were 2 mother and family groups. And Teddy Bear, when they arrived, it was about 3 months old. And that's over 4 years ago, well over 4 years, and much. He still drinks milk occasionally. So if they're left what nature intended, the milk is for their babies, just like. So that's such a people to be able to see as well when they come to visit. They're blown away because he's big now. I'm sure she's really such a long-suffering mum. But yeah, it's just wonderful to be able to see them together every time they sleep together, and it's really powerful. Yeah, the animals really are our best advocates to get to an opportunity to be with them and connect with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, absolutely. And that's one of the greatest things about sanctuaries. Naturally, they are education centers. Yeah, naturally. Yeah, and all it takes is encountering animals and seeing them and seeing how they are supposed to live. Yeah, and in fact, one of the most powerful tools in the hands of the meat industry, it isn't marketing, as powerful as that is. It really is invisibility. Yeah, it's invisibility. 100%. If you keep something invisible, if you can't empathize, because what's our strongest thing? What's the thing that allows us to transcend ourselves, connect with other people, and connect with animals? Is the ability to see. If that's shut off, and if we are forced to shut that off, and that's exactly what happens with human beings, actually human to human, in times of war. That's what happened. We don't want to empathize with the people that we want to go to war with, because we can't. If we do, we can't. We have to see them as something less than. Yeah. And that's exactly what we do to animals, because we are at war with them. We are at war. Yeah. Except in places like you created, Mama B, in that sanctuary, that's a place of peace. That's a different. There is a different ethic there. That is absolutely. So before we go and meet the animals even remotely, I just would like to remind our listeners that our guest today is lovely Mama B. She is the founder of the Owl and PussyCat Animal Sanctuary, Farm Animal Sanctuary in South New Wales in Australia. Please give them a follow on Instagram and Facebook. You can see the handle on top of the screen, and also you can easily search for the sanctuary. Please read the story, watch this, the recording of the live if you came late. Read the story on the website, donate if you can, volunteer your time if you can, and at the very least, one thing I think that would be incredibly meaningful is just to send a message and just say thank you. Just, hey, I see you, thank you. And so Mama B, thank you so very much. And so could you please walk us to the animals and show us the property? I have seen it before. It's really beautiful. Well, if you could show it to us, even remotely, so people can have a sense of what place this is.
Yeah, so I'm actually in the holiday house at the moment if people want to come stay. But who I've got with me today is little Lee. I'll see if you can see little. You like
Okay.
me?
Oh, that.
So
Cheers.
I'm just going to pick her up and she can come rounds with us. She's a very special needs hen who was rescued from a commercial breeding facility. And she ended up on the cull pile. You know, they get 12 weeks old and they just throw all the slightly sick or slightly not perfect ones on a cull pile. So she's got sort of congenital leg issues, so she can't walk very well. But we'll go outside. Okay. So I'm just going to put you down for 2 seconds and I'll pick her up properly.
Hi.
Come on, darling.
She's one.